Okay, so let's unpack this. Today, we're diving deep into a really recent and, frankly, deeply tragic event that's caught the world's attention. The Air India AI171 plane crash in Ahmedabad. Now, you've probably seen the headlines, but we're aiming to go much further than that. We've got a whole stack of sources here: witness videos, official statements, expert analysis, even some pretty revealing internal documents. Our goal, our mission for this deep dive is really to pull out the key pieces of knowledge, the insights from all this evidence. We'll build a timeline, minute by minute practically. We'll look at the main theories floating around and some surprising facts coming out of this disaster. It's not just about what happened, right? It's the why. And what bigger questions does this raise for, well, for all of us?
It really is fascinating, just how much information is already out there. We've got passenger videos, CCTV, official bits and pieces. We can start connecting those dots from the very last moments of the flight all the way back to, well, the aircraft's history. And it really forces you to ask, in something as complex as aviation, when it goes this wrong, who's ultimately responsible? Is it the crew, the airline, the manufacturer, something else entirely?
Right. Let's start right at the beginning. Let's trace the path of Air India Flight AI171. This was June 12, 2025. The plane itself, a Boeing 787 Dreamliner, it was supposed to leave Ahmedabad for London at 1:10 p.m., but there was a delay. It finally pushed back around 1:30 p.m.
And it's important to remember, this wasn't its first flight that day. Not at all. It had already flown Paris to Delhi and then Delhi to Ahmedabad. And it's actually on that earlier leg, the Delhi to Ahmedabad flight, that things get big.
Well, interesting. A passenger, Akash Vatsa, noticed some strange things. Yeah, this is where you start seeing some potential warning signs, isn't it? Vatsa shared a video on social media. It showed the plane's wing flaps constantly moving up and down. The air conditioning wasn't working either, nor was the entertainment system, the remote, nothing. I mean, just imagine seeing that on your flight. Malfunctioning critical parts before it even crashes later. Fortunately, that earlier flight, it did land safely in Ahmedabad, around 11:16 a.m.
Okay, so the plane lands and then it gets refueled. This took about 42 minutes. Now, that's a little longer than the typical 30, maybe 35 minutes.
Yeah.
A DGCA official, that's India's main aviation safety body, they later said, look, this isn't necessarily unusual for a flight with a maximum payload, meaning it's heavy with fuel, passengers, cargo, but still, it's a detail that stands out in the sequence of events.
Boarding wrapped up with 242 people on board. That's 230 passengers, 10 crew members, and crucially, 2 very experienced pilots. Captain Sumit Sabharwal, 8,200 flight hours, and co-pilot Clive Kunder, even more, 10,100 hours. These aren't rookies.
No, definitely seasoned professionals. So 1:31 p.m., the plane starts moving towards the runway. Right. Gets takeoff clearance at 1:34 p.m., all the pre-flight checks. Reported complete at 1:38 and 24 seconds. And this is critical. No warnings reported, no requests from the pilots to change runway, modify thrust, adjust flaps, nothing unusual flagged. Right. Weather was fine too, well within limits. Seemed like a totally normal departure.
Until it wasn't. At 1:44 p.m., the plane takes off from runway 23, and things go wrong, fast. If you picture Ahmedabad Airport satellite view, it's basically a single runway. Yeah. And it's surrounded by houses, buildings. So any problem on takeoff, it's immediately dangerous for people on the ground too.
And just moments after it lifted off, a local teenager, 17-year-old named Arian, he was actually filming the plane from his roof, just happened to be filming. And his video captured something really, really unusual. The plane's landing gear. It was still down, expanded.
Then at 1:38.55 p.m., so just seconds later, the plane hits about 625 feet altitude, but it just stops climbing, couldn't get any higher. And then the pilot's last call to air traffic control, desperate, thrust not achieved, falling, chilling.
And then silence. ATC lost contact. At 1:39.13 p.m., barely 34 seconds after taking off, plane starts falling. It crashed about 1.5 kilometers from the airport, right into a hostel building at the BJ Medical College in Magnani Nagar. And the impact, a massive fire immediately.
Yeah, the scene on the ground, terrible. Students were apparently on their lunch break, about 35 of them in the canteen area. They described this huge bang, felt like an earthquake, then smoke, debris flying everywhere, people jumping from windows, second, third floor, just trying to escape, just unimaginable chaos.
Absolutely horrific. And out of all 242 people on board, miraculously, one person survived. Vishwas Kumar Ramesh, a British citizen. He was sitting in seat 11A, which was here an emergency exit. He said his side of the plane basically hit the ground, and he managed to get out through that exit door. But the other side of the plane, it was blocked by a wall from the building it hit, trapped everyone else. Just one survivor.
Yeah. Incredible luck for him, but devastating for everyone else. The official death toll isn't confirmed yet, but the estimates are, what, over 270 people, including those on the ground?
That seems to be the estimate, yes.
Yeah.
It's going to be remembered as one of the worst aviation disasters.
Okay, so that's the timeline, the tragic sequence. Now, what about understanding why? What does the evidence tell us? Investigators moved fast, right? They found the black boxes.
They did. Both the cockpit voice recorder, the CVR, and the flight data recorder, the FDR. They were recovered pretty quickly. That's standard procedure, obviously crucial.
And who's leading the investigation?
India's Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau, the AAIB, is heading it up. But they're getting help from teams in the UK because of the survivor's nationality and the US. Since it's a Boeing plane, made in America, the U.S. National Transportation Safety Board, the NTSB, is also involved, conducting its own parallel investigation. There were some early reports the black boxes might go to the U.S. for analysis, but India's aviation ministry clarified no, the investigation will happen in India. Standard international cooperation, really.
Okay, black boxes aside, what other key evidence do we have? You mentioned the videos.
Right, those two videos are critical. Ariane's mobile phone video, which is surprisingly clear, and the airport's own CCTV footage.
So what do these videos actually show? What are the smoking gun observations, as some might say?
Well, Ariane's video is pretty undeniable on one point.
Yeah.
The landing gear was not retracted after takeoff. It was still down, and that's just highly abnormal. Retracting the gear is usually the very first thing pilots do after lifting off. Leaving it down creates huge amounts of drag, like driving with the handbrake on, essentially. It makes climbing much, much harder.
Okay, gear down. What else?
The flaps. The video also seems to show the wing flaps were retracted, not deployed, as they absolutely should be for takeoffs.
Flaps. Those are the extendable parts on the wing edge, right? For extra lift.
Exactly. They increase the wing surface area, giving you the lift you need at lower speeds, like during takeoff and landing. Taking off without flaps deployed, that's a major problem. It means the wing isn't generating enough lift.
So gear down, flaps retracted. That immediately makes you think, pilot error. Did they just forget or get confused?
That was an initial thought, naturally. Theories like maybe an engine hiccup startled them, they forgot the gear, or they mistakenly pulled the flap lever instead of the gear lever. Those ideas were floated.
Yeah.
But aviation experts mostly dismiss these simpler pilot error theories.
Why? Given those clear deviations, why dismiss pilot error? You said they were very experienced.
Precisely. Two main reasons. First, the Dreamliner itself. It's packed with warning systems. You get loud, clear, unmistakable warnings in the cockpit if the flaps aren't set correctly for takeoff, or if the gear isn't retracted when it should be. These aren't subtle hints. Second, the pilot's experience. We're talking over 18,000 hours combined. While mistakes can happen to anyone, forgetting such basic, critical procedures, especially without any system warnings apparently going off, it seems highly unlikely for pilots this season in such an advanced aircraft.
Okay, so if it probably wasn't simple pilot error, what else could explain the gear and flap situation and the failure to climb?
Well, this is where it gets interesting. Aviation experts point out that even if a Dreamliner somehow got to 600 feet without flaps, which is bad, it should still be able to climb, maybe slowly, but climb even on just one engine. So the fact that it couldn't climb at all, that points away from just incorrect configuration or even a single engine failure. It suggests something much more catastrophic, like a total loss of power, both engines failing.
And this is where that detail in Ariane's video comes back in, right? The possible sighting of the RAT, ram air turbine.
Exactly. The video appears to show something deploying from under the aircraft that looks very much like a ram air turbine, or RAT.
Okay, remind us again, what's a RAT?
A RAT is essentially a small emergency propeller, a wind turbine. It's tucked away in the fuselage or wing root on most modern jets. It deploys automatically, pops out into the airstream only when all other power sources fail. Both main engines are out, backup power units aren't working. It's the absolute last resort. The wind spins the propeller, which generates a small amount of electricity and hydraulic pressure, just enough to power the most essential flight controls and maybe some basic instruments. Allows the pilots some minimal control.
But for AI171, it deployed too late or too low.
And unfortunately, the plane was already very low, only 600 feet or so, and hadn't built up much airspeed. The RAT needs airflow to work effectively. So even if it deployed correctly at that low altitude and speed, it probably couldn't generate enough power to make a real difference in the, less than 30 seconds they had left?
But the fact that it might have deployed, that's the key takeaway.
Absolutely. If that was the RAT deploying, it's basically concrete proof of a total catastrophic power failure. All normal and backup electrical sources were gone. And this fits with what the sole survivor, Vishwas Kumar Ramesh, reported. Remember, He mentioned a loud bang just before the crash and the lights flickering.